Hi and welcome to Best in Tesla. So we have talked a lot about Tesla's real competition many times before, the Chinese. And we have also talked about how legacy automakers just can't keep up when it comes to EVs. But the Chinese are about to make a bad situation for the old guys even worse. But also putting some pressure back on Tesla as well, as one of the Chinese players has just launched a new EV that is in direct competition with EVs like the Model 3, a nice-sized sedan with decent specs, but the price, well, it cost half the price of the Tesla Model 3. Well, that should definitely rock the boat a bit. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. So let's start by looking at two EVs that are very similar in specs and size and type, the MG4 versus the ID.3, because this is a good showcase of legacy automakers versus China and a good showcase in what the ID.3 was supposed to be and give us a look into where the legacy automakers are today before I show you what is coming for the legacy automakers now. The ID.3 and the MG4 are very similar in specs. The ID.3 has about 30 kilometers more range, both on the lower range model and on the higher range models, but that is basically it. But the MG4 can actually tow 500 kilo on their tow hitch, where the best the ID.3 can do is a little hook for your bike rack. So you can't tow a trailer with garbage to the recycling station with the ID.3, which I think is a must-have here in Europe. So here the ID.3 just fails. And of course the MG4 can also do bidirectional charging. But I am going to give you the prices of these cars here from my country, as we do have both models available. The MG4 costs about 210,000 Danish crowns, or about $31,000. The ID.3 costs about $260,000 or $38,000. And remember, this is much cheaper than what the ID.3 did cost when it came out, and Volkswagen was out saying they would never lower the price of the ID.3 in Europe, they would not give in to the price war. But now their ID.3 is about $10,000 cheaper. So for about the same price as the cheapest, and therefore also the worst, ID.3, you can actually get the MG4's X-Power version, the performance version that does a 0 to 60 in just 3.8 seconds. The Volkswagen brand doesn't even have an electric car that can do that. So that is not even an option with your ID.3. This is almost twice as fast as 0 to 60 than the fastest ID.3. Kind of embarrassing. But Volkswagen has opened up for 2 more models in Europe with a little more range. And what it seems like they have done is just opened up for using a bit more of the reserve batteries, as the battery pack is still the same size of 82 kilowatt hours, but instead of 77 kilowatt hours of usable battery, these 2 models have 79 kilowatt hours of usable batteries, giving them a little bit more range. But these models is not really interesting in my view, because the price also goes up significantly then, and suddenly you can get the new refreshed Model 3 long range for less. Very similar price, but the long range Model 3 is actually less expensive, and there is just no comparison between the ID.3 and the new refreshed Tesla Model 3. The Model 3 wins on everything, even including luxury feeling inside and quality of the interior. But you can pick whatever matrix are important to you: safety, software, range, charging speed, cargo, tow hitch, whatever it might be. Tesla Model 3 wins hands down over the ID.3. And it is cheaper. So Tesla's new refreshed Model 3 has really put some pressure on Volkswagen's ID.3, and Volkswagen has been forced to lower their prices yet again. At the same time, the Chinese has come out with the car the ID.3 was supposed to be. The affordable little hatchback, a very popular model in the ICE industry in Europe, right? But the ID.3 was, as I said all the way back in October of 2020, it was a nice little electric car, but it was too expensive for what you got. And that unfortunately still holds true today, even though they have lowered the price $10,000, because since 2020 we have had more competition coming out in the form of the MG4 that is even cheaper yet again, and that car is in more direct competition with the ID.3 as they are very similar cars. And today we have also got the BYD Dolphin that has come out, and that is basically just an ID.3 copy, but also cheaper than the ID.3. So the Chinese are really starting to put some pressure on the old legacy automakers and their EVs, combined with Tesla has also come out with better EVs like the refreshed Model 3, but has kept the prices low, putting even more pressure on the legacy automakers. No wonder the old guys don't see the demand they hope for and are all backing down from their EV targets. But the Chinese are not only putting pressure on the affordable models from the legacy automakers, because we are also starting to see Xpeng getting some momentum here in Europe as well. I even starting to see the Xpeng G9 when I'm driving around here in Denmark. But that is also a very nice big SUV with good range, charging speed, acceleration, and of course very good cargo space, and a very nice interior. But if we compare that to Mercedes EQS SUV, it is more than half the price. It only costs about 40% of the EQS SUV. Even the EQE SUV is still about 50% more expensive. We have to go all the way down to the EQB to get the same kind of price as the G9. But then the G9 just outperforms the EQB on every single spec you can think of, so hard to even compare. Then we should probably look at Xpeng's G6 instead to compare it to the EQB, as that is basically Xpeng's Model Y copy. Xpeng does already use gigacasting and structural battery packs in their production of the G6, as they are trying to copy everything that Tesla does. So this is very close to the Tesla Model Y and was cheaper when it came out in Europe, but Tesla has lowered their prices since, and now the Tesla Model Y is a little bit cheaper, also with their rear-wheel drive long-range Model Y. But all in all, very similar in price and specs, so the G6 should do very well. And again, this just puts some more pressure on the legacy automakers, as we can compare it to the ID.4, for example. That is also in direct competition with Xpeng's G6 and the Model Y, of course. But the ID.4 Pro costs the same as the Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive long-range version. Well, here it just gets kind of embarrassing once again, because here we are getting close to the Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive long-range version having twice the range for the same price. 600 WLTP kilometers for the Tesla Model Y and 360 for the ID.4 Pro. You can get more range on the ID.4 versions, of course, but then it will also become more expensive than the Model Y. And the ID.4 GTX, their performance version, does cost the same as the Model Y performance, but here there's just no comparison either, because the performance of the ID.4 GTX cannot match the Model Y. 5.4 seconds 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, where the Model Y does that in 3.7 seconds. So again, if Volkswagen want to compete, they have to lower their prices, because the ID family is just too expensive for what you get. They can't really compete with Tesla or the Chinese on price or specs. Not a good position to be in. So it will be very interesting to watch the ID.4 and the Xpeng G6 over the next couple of years, if any of them can keep up with the Tesla Model Y in sales at some point. But I would say the ID.4 has already been out long enough to show us that it can't keep up. But in theory, the G6 should, as it is basically just a copy of the Model Y and has similar price and specs and still a very nice car inside. But that is not always enough, but time will tell. But Xpeng is about to put even more pressure on the legacy automakers with their new Mona lineup, with their first model that they have released, the M03. But this car should also put some pressure back on Tesla's Model 3 as well, because it does have a decent range, very fast charging, and Xpeng has very nice software, but it is really the price that sets this car apart. Xpeng's Mona M03 is one of Chinese cheapest electric sedans at only $16,800 in China. That is half the price of the Tesla Model 3 in China. The cheapest version has 320 miles or 515 kilometers of range, even though that is a CTLC, but still not bad. It's not very fast with over 7 seconds 0 to 60, but not everyone cares about that, of course. But the long-range version does 385 miles or 620 kilometers, still CTLC range, but that is only slightly more expensive with a price tag of only $18,200. This really seems to be the bargain of the year. Xpeng also said that their M03 saw firm orders exceed 10,000 units in the first 52 minutes after launch and received more than 30,000 orders in the first 48 hours. And no wonder, you really get a lot of range, good charging speed, and one thing that Xpeng did here that I think that all sedans should copy is that they actually made the trunk a hatchback opening. Just like the Model S is a hatchback opening, but the Model 3 is still just this little normal sedan opening. When it's a hatchback, it just becomes so much more useful and easy to access your trunk's cargo space. So that is a very nice feature. So all in all, it seems like a very nice electric car from Xpeng. And even though the starting price is half of the Model 3, Xpeng still claims that they can be profitable on this car. Don't know how that is even possible, but if this is the case, Xpeng should have a solid hit on their hands, because none of the legacy automakers has come out with something that can compete with this on price. And it even seems like the specs are going to be as good as many of the legacy automakers' EVs, but for half the price. This is going to be nuts. This is definitely a car to keep an eye on. But Xpeng also needs some good success, as their sales has been pretty much flat over the last 2 years. After they jumped up in sales in 2022, they haven't really been able to ramp up much from there. But in August, we did see that Xpeng sales jumped up, beating the July numbers by 26%, and I think that is because of Xpeng's success with the G6 in China. That did also become a top 10 of the best-selling EVs in the 200 to 300,000 RMB range in China in July, beating the likes of Volkswagen's ID.3. So it seems like the G6 could push Xpeng's sales up, and the Mona M03 should be able to do the same going forward. Xpeng also need a good, solid sales success with high volumes, as they are still not making money yet. But after Volkswagen invested in them, they do have about $10 billion in the bank, so they still have time to ramp. And if they can get two good volume vehicles here with the G6 and the Mona M03, they might not be far off getting to profitability. So we are seeing here why the legacy automakers are screwed, as their EVs today are not really on par but more expensive, and now Chinese EV makers seem to take this to a new level with the likes of Xpeng's Mona M03. And we know the legacy automakers are not coming out with a new EV platform before at least 3 years from now, so don't see how they have any counter move to this Chinese invasion. Tesla seems to be still doing great in China with new sales records and still have the best-selling EV of any kind in the country. I think Tesla's countermove here is their two new, more affordable models we are waiting for to be revealed by the end of this year or in the beginning of next year. And of course, the refresh of the best-selling car in the world, the Model Y, will of course not hurt Tesla's sales either. But Tesla's two new affordable models is going to be their countermove to the Chinese. But the legacy automakers has nothing to shoot back with. They are in a war without weapons. They have truly brought a knife to a gunfight. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.